All right. So this is the first thing we need to do in order to prepare to draw our icons is we need to find an image of our icons and get it to the right size. So I have an icon here that I've chosen. So I've just done an icon, St. John of the Cross, found the icon that I want. So I'm going to copy image. I'm going to put it into a blank Google Doc. So Control V. Oh, that's much smaller than I expected it to be. Hmm. Maybe I'll open this in a new tab, see if that's hmm. Yeah, that's just still small. Well, it would be better to have a larger icon. So let's see how big this one is. It's still kind of small. Um, let's try this one. I'm gonna copy. This one is at least a little bit bigger. You can use smaller images. I do like this one. So it'll just be blurry. So I'm going to enlarge it. We need it to be 5.5 inches. So I have this ruler right up here shows me that it is going to 5.5. So I'm lining that up there. Okay. See, now my image is very small. So now it's gotten blurry, which we can do. I can still see the lines pretty clearly. So it'll be okay. All right. So here we go. I've enlarged it to 5.5. And then but I pulled on the corner tab, right? So if you pull on these tabs, okay, it's going to stretch your image. Okay, so if I do that a lot, you can kind of see, okay, that's not right. So I want to always pull from the corner tab. Okay, line that up with 5.5 again. I want my image to be 5.5 by 7 inches. Looks like on this ruler here, we are past 7 inches. So I'm going to now crop it. So I'm just going to double click. So I just did a quick double click here. And now I have these bars that are showing that I need to crop it. So I'm going to again get it to 7 inches. And now I have a 5.5 by 7 image that I can now print. Okay, so I have to print it off because we're going to add a grid to this so that we can start doing our grid on our board and on our image. All right, so here we have our panel. We have an 11 by 14 inch panel. We are going to make a 1 inch grid on this panel. So I'm going to make sure to line up with the edge of, not the edge of the ruler, right, at 0. So not the edge at 0, otherwise you'll have an extra little mark there, or extra hang off. Won't be quite accurate. So I'm going to mark off every 1 inches along the top. And along the side, again, making sure that I'm starting at 0, not at the edge of the ruler. I'm going to continue marking 1 inches all the way down the side of my panel. Actually, I'm going to do the top, the bottom, and both sides. So you should have 11 squares across, 14 squares down.
Then we're going to line up both of those lines on the sides there. And it is important to do the horizontal lines first. So I'm going to line those up carefully. I'm going to start making my grid, my horizontal lines for my grid. On here, I'm going to start marking off 1-inch lines as well, because my ruler is only 12 inches long, but my board is 14. Okay, so if I try to line up the top and the bottom with a 12-inch ruler, it's not going to make it. So I'm going to line up instead from that middle point to the top, and then from the middle point to the bottom. Okay, so it's important to get that accurate straight line. Otherwise, your lines will be crooked, your grid will be off, and it will be much more difficult for you to draw your image. Okay, so finish the grid on your panel. Then you're going to do a 1/2-inch grid on your image of your saint. Our image is half as large as our panel, right? So our panel is 11 by 14, and our image is 5.5 by 7. So we need a grid that is half as small. So we're going to make a 1/2-inch grid. So it's the same thing. Okay, so I'm lining that up every 1/2 inch now. So 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Okay, so every 1/2 inch, I'm going to do the same thing with this grid as well. All right, so now we are going to use this grid. So I have my 1/2-inch grid here and my 1-inch grid on my board. I've also numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, and then lettered down and done the same thing with my board, because what we're going to do is we're going to look at one grid at a time and copy this grid to our larger grid. So in this one, there's nothing, okay? But if we go to the second one, there's a small little corner here, okay? So I've drawn that. So I've already started my drawing here, but as we go, okay, we can start to see the drawing emerge, okay? So this is where I'm at now. And I'm starting to get to some of the harder parts of the facial features. Now, you could go just like a printer across, you could go down, all right? That doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that we're paying attention to what grid we're copying, okay? So I want to start with this one here. So that's the second, so 2D. So we need to go down to 2D. Okay, so, oops, let me show that to you. 2D. Okay, so it's important to be in the right grid. That's why I have these things labeled here, to make sure that I'm in the right spot. Let's see, move that over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm using these pieces of paper so that I don't get overwhelmed by trying to draw his whole face. I'm just concentrating on this one grid, okay? So how this works is that I'm paying attention to where this grid, or where this line here, meets up with my grid line. So this line here, it starts about, I don't know, it's almost at the edge here, okay? And then it goes down to not quite half, so I can even make a little mark there, okay? And then it curves down like that, okay? Now I'm going to move on to the next grid here. Okay, so it starts about halfway in this grid and then goes down to almost the corner right here. Again, it's a curved line. There's another line going across, kind of starting from this, going about to here maybe. And there's another line taking up just part of the corner here. Okay. Now, a lot of times people start getting nervous because it doesn't look right. Okay. Just trust the grid. So right now, this is looking pretty crazy. Okay. Or if your head looks too big or too small or something strange is going on, just trust the grid. Trust the grid. Okay. I do notice that I'm missing a line here. So I'm going to add that in here. Okay. Now this one is pretty complicated, right? So I have a lot going on in this grid. I'm going to actually rip my paper so that I can really focus on what's going on here. So I'm going to cover up every single other part because this one's really complicated. Okay. So here we go. This is the main part of the face. Okay. So I might find, let me just double check my grid here. All right, now I do have some of these lines here that are going to help me. And then the nose goes down to about the corner. Now, it's difficult too. My picture is pretty pixelated. So I might want to go back and look at the original image on my computer to see how it looks. And sometimes the colors as well can help show. Oh, that's interesting. That goes there. Show about the middle. And some of this too is about shading. So sometimes I think his eye is too big, maybe. It is pretty pixelated, so it's hard to see. Okay. I might actually just go down because I kind of want to finish his face. So it goes down here. And sometimes you do need to kind of like look at the context here and see what's going on. Kind of smooth out those curves, make them a little bit more round. Oh, this board doesn't erase very well. Wow. Okay, well, that'll be okay because we're going to paint over it anyway. But if that bothers you, I know that I can fix that with paint. So, but if it bothers you, that's fine. Or if you want to add some shading, that's fine. But really in this, we're just wanting the lines because we're going to use these lines then to be indicators of where we're going to paint. Okay? So you can finish drawing your icon. If you have any questions, let me know and I can try to help. But the grid is actually really, really useful, okay, to then continue drawing the rest of my icon.